Welcome to your June 2025 Global Privacy Roundup. Let's dive into the top developments from North America, Europe, and Asia. June was busy in the Americas. On June 1st, Nebraska enacted its Age-Appropriate Design Code Act, and Texas passed the App Store Accountability Act, introducing stricter protections for minors and parental controls in digital spaces. On June 5th, Paraguay's Chamber of Deputies approved the long-awaited Data Protection Bill, moving the country closer to modern privacy standards. On June 12th, Vermont signed its own Age-Appropriate Online Design Code Act into law, following similar trends in other U.S. states. The FTC released FAQs on June 17th clarifying the safeguards rule under the Gramm-Leach-Bliley Act, helping financial institutions understand security obligations. New York's Children's Data Protection Act came into effect on June 20th, adding stronger protections for minors' online privacy. On June 23rd, amended COPPA rules took effect in the U.S. Connecticut enacted Senate Bill 1295 on June 25th, amending its consumer privacy law. And also on June 25th, the Electronic Privacy Information Center, or EPIC, released a new report urging stronger frameworks for algorithmic and privacy risk assessments, especially in sectors like healthcare and law enforcement. Now over to Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. June was marked by enforcement actions and new guidance. On June 1st, Malta's EDPB issued FAQs for employers handling employee data, while Estonia released guidance on using legitimate interest as a legal basis under GDPR. Georgia followed on June 3rd with new guidelines on processing children's data in schools. Germany fined Vodafone €45 million on June 3rd for poor partner oversight and security failures, and the Swedish court upheld a $6 million fine against Spotify for transparency violations. On June 4th, Finland fined Yliopiston Apteekki €1.1 million for mishandling sensitive pharmacy data. The EDPB published guidelines on handling third-country data requests under GDPR Article 48 on June 5th. France released recommendations on June 10th for employers collecting diversity data in employee surveys. Norway's DPA fined Kristiansand Municipality on June 12th for using tracking pixels without proper consent. On June 16th, the EU reached a provisional agreement to streamline cross-border GDPR cases, aiming for faster resolutions and clearer processes. On June 18th, the European Commission made AliExpress's commitments under the Digital Services Act legally binding, signaling tougher enforcement for online platforms. The UK's Data Use and Access Bill received royal assent on June 19th, shifting the country's data protection regime toward a more flexible approach. On June 20th, the European Commission launched a consultation on data retention rules for criminal investigations. On June 24th, the Commission extended the UK's GDPR adequacy decision until December 27, 2025, ensuring continued data flows. And on June 25th, the EDPB submitted comments on the EU's draft guidelines for protecting minors under the Digital Services Act, calling for stronger safeguards. In Asia, significant changes took place in June. Malaysia PDPA Amendment Act has fully come into effect, completing its phased implementation. Also on June 1st, China's new measures restricting the use of facial recognition technology became effective, limiting its use mainly to public and research settings with strict safeguards. China continued its regulatory momentum by issuing government data sharing regulations on June 4th to streamline interagency collaboration while protecting privacy. On June 11th, Hong Kong's PCPD fined Creditbase Limited for using personal data in direct marketing without consent, reinforcing that public records can't be used to bypass privacy laws. Singapore's PDPC released a new guide on anonymization on June 11th, outlining practical steps for organizations to protect personal data while enabling data-driven innovation. New Zealand published fresh guidance on June 13th clarifying how its Privacy Act applies to clubs and societies, urging these groups to revisit their data practices. India's TRAI, working with the Reserve Bank of India, launched a pilot on June 16th to strengthen digital consent management and tackle spam communications, especially in the banking sector. And finally, on June 26, Vietnam passed its Personal Data Protection Law, establishing a robust legal framework for personal data governance set to take effect on January 1, 2026. Before we sign off, here's what to watch next. Tennessee's privacy law comes into effect on July 1st. Consultations close on July 24th in France for email tracking and July 31st in Australia for children's online privacy. Norway's deadlines on July 1st include data center registrations and feedback on a proposed 15-year social media age limit. South Korea's consultation on PIPA amendments closes on July 9th. New Zealand's new standard for sharing government-held data takes effect on July 1st. China's new identity authentication rules come into force on July 15th. Minnesota's Consumer Data Privacy Act takes effect on July 31st. NIST is accepting feedback on privacy, cybersecurity, and supply chain risk updates until July 30th. Brazil is consulting on biometric data rules until July 2nd. Wrapping up for now, thanks for staying with us. Be informed, be compliant. See you next month.